So today what we are going to do is we are going to learn how to build a complicated bottom or a complicated shape on a cylindrical object. So our next project is a teacup, and it's not a teacup the way you think of a teacup, right? This is an Asian teacup. People use it for tea ceremonies, and our goal is for you to learn how to make a bottom that is a little bit, that is not cylindrical, is more pyramidal like, right? Like a pyramid. And the goal of this project is for the bottom to be different than the top. If you end up with a flat bottom, you are not accomplishing the project correctly, right? So you will have to redo it. What we are going to do to begin is you are going to grab a piece of clay. We are going to be working with recycled clay, and you are going to begin with a square or a slab. If you were to cut a piece of clay that is a block like we have done before, then you will be rolling it exactly the same way. If I begin with a piece of clay this size, what I am going to do is I'm going to roll it. I forgot my guides. Would you please pass me 2 guides from behind you? So you are going to have your clay. I am going to slam it slightly, so I have to roll a little bit less. But again, if you begin with a block, after you wedge your clay, if you begin with a block, then that will also work. Your goal is to make a slab, and we did slabs before when we did our main plates, right? They just happen to be thicker. For this project, you are going to work with something that is thinner because you are going to be drinking from it, right? So you want it only 1 guide thick at the most. And remember that everything that we make in clay will shrink about 20% after it is fired, right? So we are going to put our guides next to the clay. I would say 1 thumb away from the clay. You are going to make sure that your rolling pin is really clean because you don't want clay of other color getting on your project. And then you are going to start rolling your clay. This clay is a little bit hard, but that's okay. So I'm going to roll away from me and towards me. And please remember, when you are rolling, you want to make sure that your guides are the only thing that touches the rolling pin, right? As you are rolling, you do not want the clay to go on top of the guides because otherwise your slab is not going to be consistent in thickness, right? To make it easier, I'm going to grab it and turn it over. Now I can push on the opposite direction, and I will have 2 very nice sides, just in case I decide to work on the other one. Again, towards me and away from me. Even though I am little, I am able to push it away from me and towards me. You have to make sure that you use all of your weight, just like when you are wedging, right? You want to make sure you push away. When the clay is more moist than this one, it may happen where the clay comes with the rolling pin, rolls around there, and ruins your slab. So you want to be really careful of not doing that. Again, towards me and away from me. Towards me, away from me. Okay? I just moved my guides a little bit farther from my clay because as the clay expands, it has a tendency to roll on top of your guides, and you do not want that. You want something that is very consistent all the way. Remember, when you are working with clay, it's like cooking. You cannot begin with a very ugly slab and end up with a very nice project, right? You want to begin with a very nice slab and very well measured pieces. Okay, this is almost ready. Towards me, away from me, and towards me. And as you can see, as I am rolling, the main thing guiding my thickness is my guides, right? That's why we call them guides. Okay, we are almost done. Make sure that your guides, your rolling pin rests on your guides the whole time. Okay, so I begin with the slab. Right now, this slab is not very good in size, but I'm going to make it the right size right now, right? Okay. Questions so far? Okay, now I am going to grab a container, and these things are under the counters. You will see them. Some are wrapped with paper, some are not. If you happen to find one that has a sharp inside, you need to let me know. That way I can tape it and you don't get cut when you are trying to pull it. I'll show you what I mean. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my guides right there. And I am going to cut straight up. Right there. I'm going to keep this part because it may be good for my bottom, right? For the bottom of my cup. Then I am going to cut right there. I'm going to put my guide against the side and cut. Remember, when you cut with your needle tools, you cut straight up, right? If you cut slanted, you are going to end up with a sharp end. Straight up right there. I am not going to need this clay, but I am going to set it aside just in case. Then I'm going to grab my guide. No, actually, the first thing you want to do is to measure against your cylinder, depending on how tall you want to do it. You can make them this tall, you can make them this tall, it's up to you. As you can see, these two heights are different, but both persons got all the credit for their teacups. So to do something like this, you may need a can about that big. Your can is going to be sticking out, so it really doesn't matter, right? I'm going to get my can. You can do two things. Your cans often have a line. If you align these with the end of your slab, then you will know exactly how far to go in. So I am going to align this with the end of my can, and I am going to align it as I roll until my line, again, you will be able to see it when you are closer, but we can see it right here, until my line touches the clay again. Right after you get to the right point, you are going to add one finger to your clay, right there. And you are going to mark. Okay, but I am not cutting yet. Okay, depending on how tall you want your cup, you are going to decide. Right now I'm going to do probably 3 of my guides, and that will make a tall, not very tall, but it will give me enough for a nice bottom, about this tall, and it will give me something like this if I do 3 guides. 1, 2, I'm going to hold this one, I'm going to bring the other one out, set it right here, and now I can cut. Then I am going to bring it up, I am going to rest the edge of this guide. I'm going to align it with this edge. And I have everybody's eyes over here, right? And then again, straight across, cut. This part I'm going to keep for now because I may need it, but I may not. Why didn't it go all the way? I'll try this again. Okay, so far so good. So to begin this project, as you saw, I have my cutting tool, which is my needle tool. I have a scoring tool, a brush, my water container, right? I have a can, a piece of paper, my rolling pin, my 2 guides, and my cutting wire. Okay, now I am going to grab this paper and I am going to roll it around my can. You need to make sure you align the side that has the bottom. You are going to align it with the very edge of your paper, exactly where it is. You don't need tape or anything else. There, you want it slightly tight. You do not want the paper to go any farther than the bottom because otherwise it's going to be very difficult to pull. Also, the paper can get in between the bottom and the actual body of your cup. So far so good? No tape. Just bring this in like that. Okay, next step. I am going to, when you grab clay and you want to overlap it, think of it as a belt. The end of your belt will double up in thickness, right? You don't want that. What I'm going to do is I am going to slant the two ends that are going to overlap. That way the thickness will be consistent when you are done. This is how you do it. You grab your guide, slant it slightly, right? And then press. Press. The clay will expand a little, right? And then the other end. Slant and press. So now I have two sides that are slanted, hopefully evenly. Okay, very good. Now, I'm going to score one on the top and one side, the opposite side on the bottom. Again, why do we score? When we score, remember, we are trying to create something like Velcro. We score, then we create ridges, right? The moisture will go into those ridges, and when they overlap, they will stick like Velcro. You will be able to have a better bond in your clay. Again, so I am scoring on this side. And now, I will show you. You see? Then I am going to turn my slab over and I'm going to score on the opposite side of the other end. When you are working with clay, you need to think of it as butterfly wings. You want to hold them very carefully. You do not want to dent it. You don't want to mess up your clay, right? I'm going to press this just a tiny bit to make sure it's perfect. Again. And now I'm going to score the other end. Again, this end is scored the opposite as I turned it over. Now the opposite side is going to be the one I scored. So as you can see, again, remember butterfly wings, I have a score on this side, but not on this side, right? And then on the opposite side, but not on this side. Does that make sense? Okay, so far so good, right? Questions so far? Okay, we're good. Now, next step. I have my cup, my can, that is lined with paper. This bottom is going to be about one guide away from the edge of my clay. Here is my guide. I'm going to set it against my edge of my clay. And now my can is going to be right here. I'm going to begin on this side. And I am going to bring my clay with my fabric up until I have it on top of my can. Let go. Remember, butterfly wings. You do not want to put so much pressure where you will harm or damage your slab, right? I should do it the opposite way so you guys can see. So now the two parts that I score are going to meet and stick together, right? I have my water right here. I am not going to make a slip for this project. I am going to score, dab, both sides, dab. Don't brush, because if you brush, what happens? You ruin the scoring you did, right? Okay, score, dab. I am going to put my hand inside of my can. I'm going to follow my clay. I'm going to align it perfectly. And I am going to, what do you call this? Rock it back and forth. Okay, so far so good. Slight pressure, but not on my slab, on my can. Okay. You do not want to do so much pressure where you will end up smashing your clay. Okay, so far so good. Yes? Yes, back there? Okay. I am going to do hardly anything to this part. Maybe I'm going to press this together. Okay, now, I am going to end up, this is all you do for now. You do not want to put too much pressure. Remember that your cans often have a rim that is poking out. And if you press, you are going to end up cutting the bottom off when you finish, and you don't want that. Okay, so far, if you can see, my two parts are together, and this part should be pretty close in thickness now because my plate right there was slanted. Okay, now I am going to cut one triangle on the piece that I just attached, this part. There is two ways you can do it. You can, if you guys are fearful to make a mistake, what you can do is grab a piece of paper and cut a tiny piece. If you want to be very exact and very meticulous, this is what you do. Grab a piece of paper, fold it in half, measure against the can and the clay, yes, right there. I'm going to cut this because I do not need it. And then I'm going to make a triangle that is about 2 fingers thick. Okay, one on this side and one on this side because it is folded, right? I'll show you what I mean. Like that. And this will be my pattern for all of them. I'm going to do one here, one on the opposite side, one here, and one here. You can use your needle tool or you can use your arrow tool. Remember, arrow tools have an arrow on the top. They are like knives. Well, like they are knives, right? I'm going to cut that off. And then the other side. That's my first one. These you are not going to need. I'm going to go to the opposite side just to make sure they are perfectly matched. I'm going to align this part with the top. Right there. Again. Cut. And cut. This presentation will take me about 20 minutes at the most, but then again, as we did with the piggy banks, it will take you about 2 classes. You want to make sure that you end up with a really nice stamped cup, teacup, and I'll show you how to do stamps in just 1 second. You want to make sure this is aligned and in the middle, right? This one is not quite aligned because I'm doing it in the opposite view. Okay, cut that one. Some people do 3. You can do 3 too, it's fine. You don't want your triangle to go farther than the can because you will not be able to pull it together, right? One more. Just make sure, one finger, one finger. This one is a little bit far to my, again. You see, I don't want to make it too close. And you do not want to make the bottom, this one is still not aligned, not perfectly aligned. Let me align it good. That's one. And the last one. Okay, now, if you cannot see what I am explaining, I need you to stand over here and see, please. This is very important. Okay. So now, next, you are going to grab your scoring tool and you are going to hold the triangles that you just, now you have, when I say the triangles, I mean now these triangles. We took those triangles off, right? We are going to attach each one of these parts together. These ones are a little bit close and it may not let me, so let me pull my can slightly out because you do not want to stress it too much. Okay, that will work. I'm going to hold with my fingers, I'm going to score. The reason why you hold is because you do not want the things to flare out, right? Otherwise you will break it. 1, 2, 3. My last one. Okay, I'm ready. Now I am going to, I just score, dab, dab, the opposite side, dab, and dab. I'm going to attach these 2 ends first. You can put your, actually not can, you should put your finger in to hold as you are pressing, and the opposite side. This one got a little bit too sharp. Maybe we should make our triangles smaller. Then the other one. Dab. When I say too sharp, I mean the bottom is really, really triangular, and that will make it less stable. You want something that is not so sharp, but that's okay. I am not going to use mine, so I can still use it to show you. Right there. So as you are holding, you are going to bring the bottom in. You are putting pressure, slightly pinching this part as you are holding the inside, right? Now, I am going to grab my scoring tool again, hold, score, hold, score, hold, score, hold, score. You want to put or stamp 2 designs on your cup. My clay that I originally had aside, and I am not going to use, and I am going to use for the bottom. Same thing. I'm going to score, score, score my surface. Okay, right there. This is scored. I scored this part. The reason why I scored the whole thing, guys, is because this is so narrow, and yours should not be as narrow as mine, because then you will have a dangerous cup, especially if you are getting hot liquids in it. You do not want something that is so narrow on the bottom. Score that. Okay, I'm ready. Now, I am going to put it on, but you will put hardly any pressure on it yet. You are going to cut parts off because you don't need that much clay, right? Right there. You see, even though I put very little pressure on it, it's sticking together. The last thing you want to do is press the top down, because then you will flatten the bottom and you will have to start all over again. The most important part of this project is that you end up with a complex shape on the bottom. Whether it is triangular or a pyramid, it works both ways. So far, this is what we have. So far, so good? Yes? Okay. You do not want to get your can out until you have shaped and stamped. Let me show you how we stamp. If I were to use this tool, or any tool you have, I could even use my guides to create a pattern. You do it when you still have your can on the inside. Otherwise, you cannot put pressure on your cup without damaging the shape. Let's say you want to make a cool drawing on your project. I'll show you how to do it. I am going to make something really fast that is just a pattern I could use, just like we did with our nameplates, right? If you make a stencil, whatever you do to one side, you are going to end up with on all sides. Did you see I folded my paper in 4? You see? So far so good. And I can use it to make it a pattern, for example. And I can just draw it around on both sides or one side, right? Anyway, I will not go all the way. Now I am going to grab my arrow tool and I'm going to start trimming just like if you were peeling a potato. Very carefully. Holding in the opposite direction, and you will slowly start taking away part of the bottom. You don't want to pull too hard, and you don't want to end up cutting the bottom, right? Or making a hole in your cup. You just get closer and closer as you go, because then you have less things in the way of your trimming. Right there. And you go. Then before you pull it off, you start pulling the clay carefully. Remember, butterfly wings, you want to be firm, but you do not want to mess up your shape. pulling. Before you take the can out, this is what you do. Clean it, pinch if you need to make it one piece with the rest, right? To pull it out, you grab your paper. Please pay attention. This is important. You grab your can, you pull the paper out. This one was a little bit much paper. You want less paper than what I use, but that's fine. You put your fist in. This is why it's so important that the sharp part of your can on the inside is covered with tape. You put your fist in and then open and then pull out the can. Then the paper comes out easily. Then you work on making the inside of your cup perfect. Remember, this is going to be a functional piece, right? You can actually drink from it. You can put it in the microwave, you can bake on it. Whatever you do, it will withhold higher temperatures than anything you have at home. I just want to make sure I shape the bottom really nicely and triangular. As long as it is touching the surface, you can put a little bit of pressure, not too much. Then you can grab your sponge. Once it is in one piece, you can grab your sponge, you can clean it, you can do anything you want to it. Okay? Remember to clean the top. Anything that will come in contact with your lips, that's what you do. Questions? Easy? Okay, so that's what we have. Thank you.